My name is Todd, and for years I believed patience could turn strangers into family. When I married Megan, Brandon was 11 and Haley was 9. I never asked them to call me Dad. I never tried to erase the man whose blood they carried. I only wanted to build a home where every person contributed something: respect, honesty, responsibility. I thought showing up would be enough. I paid for the family trips Megan could never afford alone. I added the kids to my phone plan. I covered school fees, clothes, laptops, streaming subscriptions, and the gaming console Brandon swore every other kid already had. When Haley needed money for a class project, I handed it over. When Brandon wanted to join his friends on a weekend trip, I paid the deposit. I did it quietly. That was my mistake. Generosity repeated often enough stops looking like generosity. It becomes plumbing. Electricity. Something people notice only when it disappears. As the children grew older, their gratitude shrank. Requests became demands. Rules became insults. If I asked Brandon to take out the trash, he looked at Megan. If I told Haley she couldn't stay out past midnight, she laughed and texted her mother from the same room. Megan always said the same thing. "They're teenagers, Todd. Don't take it personally." But everything becomes personal when it happens beneath the roof you pay for. The final argument began over nothing. Brandon had left food containers and dirty clothes across the living room. Haley had used my credit card information to upgrade a gaming account without asking. I stood in front of them and said the house needed rules. Brandon leaned back on the couch. Haley smiled. Then they laughed in my face. "We only listen to our mom," Brandon said. "You're nobody here," Haley added. Megan stood near the kitchen doorway. She said nothing. That silence hurt worse than their words. I looked at the three of them and finally understood my place. I was not a husband helping raise 2 children. I was an account number with legs. A driver. A repairman. A man whose authority ended exactly where their comfort began. I did not shout. I went upstairs. That evening, Brandon and Haley packed for a trip they had been planning with friends for months. Hotel rooms, transportation, activity passes. I had paid for all of it. They laughed in the hallway, discussing restaurants and souvenirs, completely certain that the nobody downstairs would continue funding everything. I opened my laptop. First, I canceled the hotel reservations. Then the transportation. Then the prepaid activities. I changed the passwords to every streaming service, the home Wi-Fi, the gaming accounts, and the cloud storage attached to my card. I removed my payment information from their phones. I froze every optional expense that existed because of me. My hands were steady. For the first time in years, so was my mind. Then I sent Megan a message. "Come pick up your kids today. If they only recognize your authority, then they're your responsibility now." She called immediately. I did not answer. The explosion came 20 minutes later. Brandon discovered the hotel cancellation first. Haley realized the Wi-Fi password had changed. They stormed into my office, shouting that I had ruined everything. "You can't do this!" Brandon screamed. I looked at him calmly. "Why not? I'm nobody here." Haley called me cruel. Brandon said I was acting like a child. Megan came home furious, demanding that I restore everything before their friends left without them. I asked her one question. "Why should a man with no authority carry all the responsibility?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The next morning, their friends left without them. Their biological father refused to help. He said money was tight. He said the timing was bad. He said maybe next year. He had always been good at saying things that cost him nothing. For 3 days, Brandon and Haley raged. Then the house became quiet. Without the subscriptions, the trips, the paid entertainment, and the endless convenience, they finally saw how much of their lives had rested on my shoulders. Not their father's. Mine. Brandon found a weekend job at a grocery store. Haley began paying part of her phone bill with money she earned tutoring a younger student. They stopped asking Megan to overrule me. They stopped speaking through sarcasm. Their apologies came slowly. Brandon stood in my office one night and admitted he had treated me like a wallet. Haley cried when she said she had repeated cruel things she heard from friends because she thought I would keep paying no matter what she said. I accepted their apologies. But I did not restore everything. Trust is not a subscription. It cannot be reactivated with a password. They earned pieces of it back through months of changed behavior. They cleaned without being threatened. They asked instead of demanded. They thanked me. More importantly, they learned to hear the word no without treating it like betrayal. The family became smaller in its expectations, but more honest. And I learned the lesson I should have understood years earlier. Sacrifice does not purchase respect. Sometimes it only teaches people that your limits do not exist. Consequences taught my stepchildren what generosity never could. A man who keeps paying after being told he means nothing is not preserving a family. He is financing his own humiliation. So tell me, was I wrong to shut everything down? Or was calmly closing my wallet the first honest thing I ever did in that house? For a while, I believed the worst was behind us. Brandon came home from his shift smelling of cardboard, detergent, and the cold air that followed customers through the automatic doors. Haley kept a notebook where she tracked every dollar she earned and every bill she had agreed to cover. Megan watched them change with the careful relief of someone afraid that one wrong word might wake the old version of our family. I wanted to believe it was permanent. But consequences can teach humility without healing resentment. 3 months after the canceled trip, Brandon's biological father, Eric, suddenly decided he wanted to be involved again. He had heard about the jobs, the lost privileges, and the rules. He called the children and told them I was controlling them with money. He made me sound like a jailer. According to him, a real parent gave without conditions. A real father did not keep score. A real man did not punish children because his feelings were hurt. The hypocrisy would have been amusing if it had not entered my home through the mouths of the 2 children I was trying to forgive. Brandon became distant first. He stopped arguing, but his silence changed. It was no longer thoughtful. It carried accusation. Haley started closing her laptop whenever I walked past. Megan insisted I was imagining things. Then Eric invited them to spend the weekend with him. He promised concerts, restaurants, and a hotel in the city. He sent photographs of tickets. He told them they deserved fun after living under my restrictions. They left Friday afternoon without looking back. On Saturday morning, Megan received the first call. Eric had canceled the hotel because his card was declined. The concert tickets had never been purchased. He had driven the children to the city anyway, hoping to borrow money from a friend who stopped answering his phone. By evening, they were sitting in a fast food restaurant with nowhere to sleep. Megan grabbed her keys. I stopped her at the door. "Let him solve it," I said. Her face changed. "They're stranded. With their father. They're still our children." I heard the word "our" and almost laughed. It appeared whenever there was a crisis. During ordinary days, they were her children. When bills arrived, when a car broke down, or when Eric failed them, they became ours. Still, I drove. The city was 2 hours away. Megan sat beside me, silent, while rain struck the windshield hard enough to erase the road. I thought about every time I had rescued that family without anyone asking what it cost me. We found Brandon and Haley beneath the restaurant awning. Eric was gone. He had told them he needed to find an ATM. He had taken their bags with him. Brandon climbed into the back seat without speaking. Haley whispered thank you, but her voice sounded ashamed rather than grateful. Halfway home, Brandon said, "Dad said you'd come." I looked at him through the mirror. Of course he did. The words settled heavily inside the car. Eric had not merely abandoned them. He had counted on me to repair the damage. Even his failures depended on my reliability. When we reached home, Megan made food while the children sat at the kitchen table in wet clothes. I stood across from them and waited. Haley began crying. Brandon stared at his hands. "He said you only help us so you can control us," Brandon finally muttered. "And what do you think? He lifted his eyes. There was no arrogance left in them. I think he knew you would save us because he never planned to. That sentence should have felt like victory. It did not. There is no triumph in watching children discover that their father treats them like luggage he can leave behind. Eric returned their bags 2 days later. He left them on the porch and drove away before anyone opened the door. Inside Haley's suitcase, the money she had saved from tutoring was gone. Brandon called him. Eric denied taking it. Then he accused Haley of losing it. Finally, he stopped answering. That night, I heard Brandon crying through his bedroom wall. It was the first time I had ever heard him cry. I stood outside his door with my hand raised, uncertain whether I still had the right to enter. He opened it before I knocked. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not for the cancelled trip. Not for the insults. For believing that my boundaries made me cruel while Eric's abandonment somehow made him free." I sat beside him, but I did not promise everything would return to normal. Normal had nearly destroyed us. Instead, we made new rules. Any money I contributed would be discussed openly. No one would use payment as proof of love. No one would use blood as an excuse for disrespect. Megan would no longer remain silent when the children dismissed me, and I would no longer hide resentment behind endless giving. Eric disappeared again. This time, the children did not defend him. Months passed. Brandon saved enough to buy his own used laptop. Haley rebuilt her stolen savings. When summer came, we planned a modest trip together. Everyone paid something, even if it was only for one meal or a tank of gas. The hotel was smaller. The drive was longer. But nobody treated me like a wallet. On the final evening, Brandon handed me a cup of coffee and called me Todd. Then he paused. "Is it okay if I call you Dad someday?" I looked toward the dark water and felt every old wound open at once. "I don't need the name," I told him. "I need the truth behind it." He nodded. That was enough. I learned that forgiveness without change is only permission. I also learned that consequences should not become revenge. A man can defend his dignity without hardening his heart, but only if the people who wounded him are willing to carry part of the repair. So tell me, when I drove through that storm to rescue children who had rejected me, was I betraying my own boundary? Or did I finally prove that being their father was never about the money at all? Life did not become perfect after that conversation. People imagine that one apology repairs years of damage, that one honest evening wipes away every careless word spoken in anger. Real families do not heal that way. Trust grows slowly because disappointment leaves deep roots. Every promise has to survive ordinary days before anyone believes it. Autumn arrived quietly. The house felt different, not because it was happier, but because it was calmer. Brandon no longer expected me to solve every problem before he noticed it existed. Haley stopped treating every conversation like a contest she had to win. Megan finally understood that keeping peace by staying silent had nearly destroyed the family she wanted to protect. Small changes mattered more than dramatic speeches. One Saturday morning, Brandon asked if I could teach him how to change the oil in his old car. A year earlier he would have expected me to do it while he stayed inside playing games. This time he stood beside me in the driveway for 3 hours. His hands became black with grease. He complained about the cold concrete. He dropped a wrench twice and laughed at himself instead of blaming someone else. When we finished, he looked at the engine with quiet pride. "I didn't know it took this much work." I smiled. "That's true for almost everything worth keeping." He nodded without answering. I knew he understood I wasn't talking about the car. Haley changed in different ways. Instead of asking me to replace her cracked phone, she spent months saving tips from tutoring and babysitting. When she finally had enough money, she invited me to the electronics store because she wanted advice, not a free purchase. She paid the cashier herself. Walking back to the car, she held the bag carefully. "It feels different when it's yours," she admitted. "It always does." That afternoon I realized she was protecting the phone more carefully than any expensive gift I had ever bought her. People value what costs them something. The lesson reached Megan as well. She stopped asking me to quietly cover expenses without discussion. We built a household budget together, and every person understood exactly what was being paid, by whom, and why. Money stopped being invisible. So did effort. Near Thanksgiving, Brandon came into my office carrying an envelope. "I owe you?" I opened it. Inside was $300. It wasn't much compared to everything I had spent over the years, but that wasn't the point. "I don't want it," I said. "You have to take it." "Why?" "Because I spent years acting like your money appeared from nowhere." I looked at the bills for a long moment. Finally, I accepted them. Not because I needed the cash. Because refusing would have rejected the responsibility he was finally willing to carry. Christmas approached. For the first time since marrying Megan, I made one announcement before anyone started writing wish lists. "We're setting a family budget. Everyone gets the same amount. No exceptions." Nobody argued. Brandon suggested homemade gifts for extended relatives. Haley baked cookies instead of buying expensive presents. Megan smiled more that December than she had in years. The house felt warmer, though we spent less money than ever before. On Christmas morning, Brandon handed me a small wooden box. I made it at work. The corners weren't perfectly straight. The stain was uneven. The lid squeaked when it opened. It was the finest gift I had ever received. Not because of what it was. Because nobody had paid for it except him. Later that evening, while everyone cleaned the kitchen together, Megan touched my arm. "You were right." I looked at her. I should have stopped the disrespect long before it reached that point. I squeezed her hand gently. We both learned. She nodded. So did the kids. Looking around the room, I realized something important. Nothing had been restored. Everything had been rebuilt. Those are not the same thing. Restoration tries to return people to what they were before they broke. Rebuilding creates something stronger because everyone remembers exactly how the damage happened. I no longer believed love required endless sacrifice. I no longer confused generosity with obligation. The children no longer confused support with entitlement. Respect had finally become something shared instead of demanded. Sometimes I still remembered the day Brandon laughed and called me nobody. The memory never completely disappeared. But it no longer controlled the house. It simply reminded me that dignity has to be protected before resentment replaces kindness. The greatest gift I ever gave my family was not money, vacations, subscriptions, or expensive holidays. It was refusing to let them become the kind of people who believed love could be measured only by what someone was willing to buy. Looking back now, I don't regret closing my wallet that day. I regret waiting so many years before opening my eyes. So tell me honestly, would our family have survived if I had kept paying for disrespect? Or did finally drawing a boundary give every one of us the chance to become better than we were before? The peace we rebuilt lasted until the following spring, when Eric returned with a lawyer's voice and a father's vocabulary he had never earned. He called Megan first. I knew something was wrong when she stepped onto the back porch and closed the door behind her. For 15 minutes, I watched her pace beneath the kitchen window, one hand pressed against her forehead, the other gripping her phone. When she came inside, her face was pale. "Eric wants the children every other weekend." I stared at her. "He says he's changed." People who truly change rarely announce it. They prove it in small, expensive ways through time, patience, and responsibility. Eric had offered none of those things. He had vanished after stealing Haley's savings and abandoning both children in another city. Now he wanted weekends. Not school mornings. Not medical appointments. Not bills. Weekends. The polished part of parenting. Brandon refused immediately. Haley said nothing, but I saw fear move across her face. Megan told them they were old enough to decide for themselves. I agreed, though a darker part of me wanted to lock every door and erase Eric's number forever. That was not my choice. This family had nearly collapsed because I confused protecting people with carrying them. I would not make the same mistake by controlling their decisions. 3 days later, Eric appeared at the house. He arrived in a rented car and wore a new jacket. He looked successful from a distance, which was where he preferred people to remain. Brandon stood beside me in the hallway. Haley stayed near Megan. Eric smiled as though the last year had never happened. I came to make things right. Nobody answered. His eyes settled on me. You've had a lot of influence over them. The accusation was gentle, almost civilized. I kept my voice steady. I stayed. His smile tightened. I'm still their father. Brandon stepped forward. Then where were you? Eric looked at him with wounded surprise, as though the question itself were unfair. I made mistakes. You left us outside a restaurant. I was trying to find help. You took our bags. Eric glanced at Megan. This is exactly what I mean. Someone has filled their heads with one version of events. I felt Brandon tense beside me, but I did not speak for him. That mattered. For years I had fought battles on behalf of children who did not respect me. Now they had to learn to defend the truth with their own voices. Haley finally moved away from her mother. You stole my money. Eric's expression changed. I never touched it. It was inside my suitcase. You probably misplaced it. Her face hardened. The old Haley would have screamed. The new one simply held out her hand. Then pay it back. Silence. Eric looked at all of us, searching for the weakest point. His eyes stopped on Megan. You're going to let them talk to me like this? Megan's reply was quiet. They're telling you what happened. For the first time, she did not rescue him from the consequences of his own failure. Eric's mask slipped. He called Brandon ungrateful. He accused Haley of lying. He told Megan she had poisoned the children against him. Then he turned toward me and said I had bought their loyalty. That sentence struck the deepest wound he could find. Because once, it might have been true. I had paid for comfort because I was terrified affection would disappear without it. I had mistaken being needed for being loved. Eric saw that weakness because he possessed its opposite. He wanted love without giving anything. I stepped aside. Ask them? His eyes narrowed. Ask them whether I bought them. He looked at Brandon. Brandon met his stare. Todd stopped paying for everything. Eric frowned. I got a job, Brandon continued. Haley pays her own bills. We help around the house. He didn't buy us. He made us grow up. Eric laughed bitterly. So now he's a hero. No, Brandon said. He's the man who came when you left us. The room went still. I had imagined hearing words like those for years. In my imagination, they always felt like victory. In reality, they felt heavy. Because every acknowledgement of what I had done was also an acknowledgement of what Eric had refused to do. He left soon after. There was no dramatic apology. No promise to return the stolen money. He walked out while muttering that the children would understand when they were older. Brandon closed the door behind him. Haley began to cry. I did not tell her everything would be all right. Some wounds should not be covered with easy lies. I sat beside her. So did Brandon. Megan lowered herself onto the floor and wrapped an arm around both children. I remained close, but I did not force myself into the center. That was another lesson. A stepfather can love deeply without claiming every space. He can protect without owning. He can remain present without turning sacrifice into a debt everyone must repay. Weeks later, Haley received an envelope with no return address. Inside was the exact amount Eric had taken. There was no apology. Only money. She handed it to me and asked what she should do. I told her the decision belonged to her. She deposited half into savings and donated the rest to a shelter for teenagers. Why? I asked. Because somebody should get help without owing anyone love. Her answer stayed with me. I had spent years believing my family owed me gratitude because I had sacrificed for them. Eric believed they owed him loyalty because they carried his blood. We were different men, But both of us had once treated love like a contract. The children taught me otherwise. Love does not erase consequences. Love does not require submission. And love given freely must still leave room for dignity. So tell me, was I right to stand back and let Brandon and Haley confront their father themselves? Or should a stepfather always step forward, even when the children have finally found voices of their own?